Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode 165 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is a Monday, November the 22nd, 2021. I hope this week of Thanksgiving is kicking off on a high note for everyone. Coming up in the next segment, I'll be joined by tonight's guest, Ankh. He'll be joining the show to talk about his new book, The Water Engine, which is being released this month through Femme Salve Books. Ankh is also a co-editor at Ice Flow Press and a contributing editor for Barron Magazine. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about his work with those venues, as well as what other projects he's currently working on. So stay tuned for a conversation with and poems from Ankh coming up in just a bit. If you're interested in checking out past episodes of Songs of Selah, they can all be found in the archive at 17numa.com. I've been meditating each morning for the past 10 months now, ever since the idea initially popped into my head as I fell asleep while listening to a Michael Tessarian interview where he was speaking on the subject. Not that it was some completely novel concept to my life, as I've had periods of mild flirtation with various methods of mindfulness through the years, going all the way back to when I graduated from high school and fortuitously came across a book boxed up in the basement that belonged to my dad. It was from 1974 and was titled, How to Meditate. Straightforward enough, right? Years later, in my early 20s, I would begin to research Buddhism, Taoism, and other Eastern philosophies a bit more heavily. But this year, a couple more decades down the line, has definitely proven to be the most disciplined and honed in I've ever been with meditation. Sometimes the mind temporarily becomes calm, and I can silently surrender to the dance of white light that pulses behind my eyes. But more often than not, it's mostly an act of detachment, while simply observing whatever the hell happens to be swirling through my thoughts in the early AM hours. And on certain occasions, answers, insights, possible solutions, and new avenues forward present themselves. Such was the case this morning as I pondered what my next steps should be. With that in mind, I've decided that this will be the final episode of Songs of Selah here in 2021. The quietude of hermitage seems to be calling out to me at this particular moment, so I'm planning to sink deeper into the stillness and see where it leads over the next 5 weeks or so. A personal holiday to celebrate the holy days ahead, as it were. We are living in interesting, albeit dangerous times, and what we've experienced so far during the first 2 years of this attempted Great Reset, Build Back Better revolution is going to look like a paradisical fairy tale compared to what the social engineers, behavioral psychologists, and technocratic elitists who are seeking the takedown of democracies across the globe have in mind. That is, of course, unless the people get hip to what's going on with the programming, put up a united front against the corrupted institutions, rise against the system of the beast, and deal unapologetically with those who have orchestrated the deception and are responsible for the direction we're currently heading. My basic thought where that line of reasoning is concerned is, God bless the millions of people protesting in the streets of France and Italy and Austria, and Germany, and New York, and Australia, and Canada, and everywhere else across the globe. and bless the millions more who are slowly but surely starting to catch the drift and join in the opposition against the tyranny at hand. It's going to be a bumpy ride ahead, but free humanity and those on the side of sovereignty and liberty will win in the end. I might be an eternal optimist at heart, but I'm not just whistling Dixie in this regard. Amen. As this chapter of the show draws to a close, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has appeared as a guest during the past 3 years, and to everyone who has tuned in to listen. It's been a fun ride, and though I'm not exactly sure how the show will carry forward into the future, I'm confident that the concept of Songs of Selah will reemerge in one iteration or another, whether that be here on Blog Talk Radio or in some other form. As with all things in life, time will tell. But to finish off this final opening monologue of the year, I thought I'd read an essay from the new collaborative book Evermore, which I wrote along with Mihaila Melnick. This is one of my pieces called Chewing the Cud. There's nothing quite like that moment when you're walking through the park and happen upon a spot where a group of goats are chewing the cud in a nearby field. If the 1 o'clock sun is shining down in all its glory to help mitigate the factor of a frigid autumn temperature, well, all the better still. And by Elohim, along with every minor deity currently weaving magic through the cosmos, if you happen to be slowly savoring the day's first cigarette right then and there, well, dadgum shoot and gee willikers, you just done gone and felt a little slice of heaven sliver with a shiver up and down your spine. We call that the real deal Holyfield around these parts. It's holy trifecta gold when the kundalini buzz triangulates inside a brain. Fractal patterns shift their shape, manifesting kaleidoscopic prisms out of thin air. Angelic angles align, finding perfect cohesion at the core. Geometric sanctification results in absolution as attunement is achieved at the highest vibration. Rhythmic wings gently guide the frequency of ascension into orbit. Fractions of quantum mechanical blueprints temporarily become apparent, only to drift away like dust in the wind as ideas get flighty and mathematical equations disperse with an exponential quickness. This is all just a way of saying something without really saying anything at all, other than the fact that two hawks are circling in the sky above as countless cars drive beneath them, single file, along a straight road to nowhere. Nature is wiggly, but traffic rules and regulations are hard as a rock, just like some of the stoned heads that banged themselves together to come up with this red tape, bureaucratic, penalty-laden pyramid system scam, trying to turn Earth into a purgatory prison. Bread and water for the inmates, vaccine cocktails for the specimens. Methods of transaction need to fundamentally shift. No one is satisfied with eating cake forever. Where's the blood? Where's the wine? Where's the rose? Where's the sign? Where's the sweet-toothed junkie going to run? Where's the raw vegan guru going to hide? Where's the GMO? Where's the healthcare scare? Where are the doctors going to sleep? Where are the homeless going to freeze? Where are the birds? Where are the bees? Where's the honey? Where's the sting? Where's the bandage for this wound? Where's the future of toxic plumes? Where's the poison? Where's the doom? Where's the virus? Where's the gloom? Good Lord, sweet Jesus, where were you raised, boy? In a barn? Didn't you ever learn not to leave the door of your psyche wide open? Weren't you ever taught the power of snake medicine? Didn't the shaman slam down all his woo-woo voodoo knowledge on your head at birth? Didn't you receive the source download when you were snatched from star sleep and spit out the mortal womb? Didn't you suck a thumb soaked in vodka while cutting your incisors? Didn't you decide to dance to the sound of madness before you ever even crawled? Didn't you scrawl hieroglyphics on cave walls back when you were just yay tall? Didn't you scowl in the face of lions and hunt your way to the top of the heap? Didn't you take the hit of garden evolution from the jungle plant? Didn't you leap with faith from one plateau to another? Didn't you grow from seed? Won't you return to soil? Aren't you just like all the rest? Isn't this whole illusion cut from the same cloth? Didn't we divide from the original oneness when the dualistic ego got the bright idea to trip the light fantastic? Now the Milky Way is a paradise of melted cotton candy floating along the river of Tao. Now it's time to switch off the power, cut the cords, close the blinds, pull the curtains, and fall silent. Now it's time to scream once more before completely shutting up. Now it's time to burn out righteously so we can rise again. Now it's time for an electric encore. Now it's time for a thrilling sequel. Now it's time for absolution through enlightenment. Now it's time to slay all dragons. Now it's time to reawaken. Now it's time to cast off dark shadows, shun the wickedness of evil in this world, and reclaim the sovereign birthright of humanity's unlimited spiritual potential. Now it's time for a new epoch of true freedom. So get after it, kids. I'll just be over here staring at some goats near the pearly gates of Evermore. All right, that'll just about wrap things up here at the top of the show. But speaking of Evermore, let's check out one more piece from the book read by Mihaela Melnick before heading into a music break. Then we'll be back on the other side with tonight's guest, Ankh Spice. Stay tuned.
About Karajali's chain and Bills. Bills never told me to read. He just showed me how to do it. He would lie in bed with a book in hand and a cigarette in his mouth, giving my head his paternal chest and clouds of smoke. I would listen to his voice reading Zola and Dumas until my brain knew nothing else. On the cover of the booklet forgotten on its shelf, there was a sexy lady with a dogged leash. Nobody in my home seems to have ever scrolled it, and I had an insane attraction but also a reverential fear of it. I would try my best to read the title in those days. There was Lanțul slăbiciunilor, the chain of weaknesses. My mind would read Lanțul sălbăticiunilor, the chain at the wild beasts, instead. It haunted me for years.
Bravissimo, hip hip, hooray! What a glorious display! Melt our joyous hearts away under the mushroom cloud confetti.
Welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Tonight's guest, Ankh Spice, is a queer, sea-obsessed poet from New Zealand. His poetry has been published over 100 times in the last 2 years. 8 of his poems have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and or Best of the Net, and he was joint winner of the Poetry Archive's Worldview 2020 competition. He co-edits at Ice Flow Press and is a poetry contributing editor at Barron Magazine. His debut full collection, The Water Engine, will be published in November 2021 by Femme Salve Books, an imprint of Animal Heart Press. With that, I'd like to welcome tonight's guest, Ankh, to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Kia ora, Scott. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Good to talk to you here tonight. Interested in finding out about this new collection you have coming out and whatever else you're working on these days. And one thing I'm interested to ask you about here at the beginning is, can you tell us a little bit about New Zealand, where you live, and the particular area which I didn't try to pronounce because I didn't want to make sure you could fill me in on that.
Sure. I think thanks for having me on. First of all, I'm just really, really pleased to be here, and having heard that it is your last episode before your next great adventure is really special. So thank you extra for that. I'm from Aotearoa is the proper name of New Zealand. It means literally the place or the land of the long white cloud, and we like to use it wherever we can because honestly, why would you use New Zealand when you have a name like that available to you? The place where I live is the capital city, which is Te Whanganui-a-Tara, which is also known as Wellington. And it's at the bottom of the North Island, so kind of in the middle. And it's a beautiful place. It's all coasts and all sea, and the whole country is very coastal, but this place in particular, we're kind of a peninsula, so you're never more than spitting distance from the coast.
Oh yeah, sounds like a beautiful locale. Aotearoa, is that how it's pronounced?
Aotearoa.
Aotearoa, okay, very cool. Well, it sounds like a location that would fit the bill for being constantly inspired and in tune with nature. Is that one of the themes that plays into your work? Having those?
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah. I don't think you could live here and not have a sense of the water around you and the way that it runs through you and the environment and shapes pretty much the skin of the place that you're walking through. And for anyone who's creative or sensitive to that, it flows into everything that you do. In my case, everything that I write.
Very cool. Well,
was it that initially inspired you to get into poetry and the arts?
I think that sort of goes back as far as I can remember. I've written forever. I'm one of those kids that was quite prolific with writing stories and just images, and also with music and song. So that weaves itself into my writing and the rhythm of that. I think technically my first published poem was when I was about 7, and I wrote a poem that I think was mainly a list of native tree names that ended up in the school journal, so that probably counts as the first publication. But I wrote quite prolifically during early adulthood and my teen years when I was very unwell. I spent quite a lot of time in psychiatric hospitals and wrote extensively. I filled books and books and books with poetry through that time, all of which ended up lost because it was taken away from me by the doctors in the hospitals, and I'm sort of still really sad about that. So recently in the last couple of years, I've revisited that will to write and found some fragments of those poems and built it up from there, and have always been sort of too shy to show anybody my work. And then a couple of years ago, somebody said to me, look, I think there's a place out there for your work, and I think more people would want to read it, and why don't you have a look at some of these online literary magazines and have a chat to people and take it from there. And it really grew. It grew from that just over the last couple of years, this latest leg of the journey anyway. So a lifetime in the making, and this latest leg a couple of years long.
What an absolute tragedy that they stole all of your material, but that's fantastic. You've been able to sort of piece it back together and recreate it from a certain standpoint at least.
I did find a couple of books that were retained that a family member of mine had, and there were a lot of fragments in there that there's a few poems in the Water Engine that grew from those fragments. So it was good to find at least some, but I know that there are a lot more
out there somewhere. Maybe they'll at some point in life find their way back into your hands some way synchronistically. Who knows?
Maybe so. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you talk
I'm a
this.
big believer that poems find you as you need them. So perhaps my old ones will find me when I really need them. Maybe I'm just not ready to find them yet.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Absolutely. You talk about this first leg of your journey here in the initial years since you decided to dive in and start sharing your work with the world. It sounds like you've had some great success with the amount of publications and recognition that you've received so far. What has the journey been like from your experiences?
It's been astounding. I did not expect this at all. I thought, maybe a few people would read what I wrote and it might resonate with some people who'd been through similar things. But I didn't expect this. And a lot of it's down to having sent in a few poems to Black Bar Poetry, who are a Welsh lit mag who sort of have become second family to me. And their editor-in-chief, Matthew M.C. Smith, saw something in those very early poems and decided that he was going to publish them. And it really grew from there, having somebody who was both kind and an enormous poetry brain who knew what he was doing, to have seen some value in what I was writing and saying, I think more people would get something out of reading this was immense to me, and that kept me going. So yeah, I sent work to more places, and to my delight, people were getting things out of the things I was writing, which is every writer's dream, I guess.
fantastic to have that initial voice in the beginning that gives you that boost of confidence and sort of sets the stage to take those initial steps. And it sounds like you're...
Yeah, it was invaluable. Yeah.
Not just walking, but running full speed ahead through the door, which is what I think people should do when they find their calling in life. Not dilly-dally around, but really take it in with all the momentum they can for all it's worth. And so It's always exciting to talk with people who are doing that. And you talk about the work resonating with other people out there in the world. What is it that you hope readers come away with when they encounter your work?
I think a sense of the circle of all things would be what I've woven into this book, and something that repeats throughout all of my work, that we're not these little isolated dots sort of all floating inside our own skins and condensed and isolated and individual. We are connected to each other and to our environment and through time in ways that we can't even conceive of, that everything feeds everything else, and that there is always a circle, there's always a cycle in every single thing that you look at or go through in your life. And the water engine is very much based around that whole concept of, this floating sea of intake and everything that feeds us, that we take in, that we experience, moving through this weird mechanism, these skins that we're contained inside, and then escaping that and flowing free and drifting and colliding and returning back down to that source, and the whole thing starts again. So I think that sense is in individual poems, that dark within light and light within dark as well. And it's throughout the book. And if anybody took that away from my work, that feeling of a bigger thing, then I'd be really, really happy.
Well said. Definitely some deep spiritual connotations and themes you're hitting on there with the source field energy and the collective consciousness that sort of ties us all together, that jeweled net of Indra, where everything is interconnected. Hopefully we can expand and expound upon that a little bit more as this show goes on tonight. Those are concepts that can be unpacked and unraveled for a lifetime. So a lot more to be said on that. What are some of the other themes that went into the water engine and your work in general?
It is, because it's such a large collection, there are sections within it that are not tightly themed like a chapbook. I think I say in my dedication to the reader that this book is a whole life, and in a way I guess it's several lives, I think. So there's nature poems in here, there's eco poems in here, there's poems of environmental decline, there's some pretty heavy duty mental health poems, as you'd expect from what I talked about previously. Some of those poems are in this book. There's mythology running right through all of those poems in threads. And one of the things that I really like to do is sort of weave multiple layers into poems, so that when I'm writing, it's seldom about one thing, that there are multiple levels on which a reader can step in, as shallow or as deep as they want to go. So I'd say the nature stuff and the mental health stuff sort of weaves and colludes and combines in poems, and in every poem in this book. It's there for the finding.
Very cool, having those multiple layers and levels that people can weave themselves through. What was the initial concept that came to mind, or initial idea that moved you in the direction of wanting to put this collection together? Obviously, you had been publishing in the different journals and having success there. Was there a moment in time or some experience that made you decide now's the time to put this book together?
Yeah, it's a funny thing that because I made a lot of friends in the poetry community who have been a second family to me, and people talk, everybody starts to pull their collections together, and I realised that doing a chapbook or a pamphlet was a thing, and that editor that I mentioned from Black Bell Poetry did some mentorships for people. He selected a few people that he'd published to kind of mentor and work with in the first few months that I was being published, and I was lucky enough to be one of those people. So we pulled together, I sent him a manuscript of, 20 of my poems, and it was a very collaborative process to go through those, and for me to figure out what it meant to pull a collection together, because it wasn't something I'd ever thought about doing or had any knowledge of. So again, he was invaluable for that. So we'd pulled together that manuscript, and I was approached by a press who wanted to know whether I had a collection that could be potentially submitted. And I gave them that book as it was, and they'd decided to proceed to publish that. But unfortunately there was something quite nasty happened within that press, and the press ended up folding. They went on hiatus, and I pulled that manuscript from them. It was quite a painful process, that whole thing, which meant that I'd lost heart in that manuscript as it was. So I put it aside and basically just kept writing and kept putting my individual poems out there, and then adding to that manuscript any poems that I thought fitted the growing theme of that book. But I had no intentions of submitting it anywhere again, and it was sort of a work in progress that was just in the background, with a sense that if it was meant to happen at some stage it would. And then I was at a friend's book launch, and it was Carrie Flickinger, who's been on Songs of Selah, whose was the first show of yours that I listened to, for her launch of The Gull in the Bell Tower. And she'd kindly invited me to read at her launch for that book. And the press that had published her approached me at that launch to ask whether I had a manuscript that I'd consider submitting, and that was Femme Salve. And the rest kind of history. They are a press that work with rescued manuscripts, which was exactly what this was. And although I knew what they did, I hadn't, I guess, been brave enough to submit the book as it was, because I felt like it was such a mess, and the process had been so damaging to me. And I didn't want to take up space in the world in that way. But Femme Salve are so gentle. I call them the coven, and they are magic, what they do to resurrect these books that otherwise would have been lost. So that was the origin of the Water Engine, and they worked with me to grow it into what it became and what it is now out in the world.
That takes into consideration what you were talking about a little bit earlier, how these things sort of come when they're meant to in the world, and you talked about how you continued to add poems to the collection from its initial starting point. How much did it grow in between the time that it fell away from the initial press and Femme Salve picked it up?
Massive. It was huge. And I said, when Amanda, who's listening online now, when she approached me, I said, well, I do have this manuscript, but in my opinion, it's a mess, and it needs a lot of work to untangle and unpick and resort and figure out if it's 3 books or 1 book or what it is. And her expertise and the tenderness of their process was exactly what I needed to progress this. It wouldn't have happened as it did without them. But it had grown a lot in that time, and then we culled and pruned and took it back again and resorted it, and working with Amanda and Elizabeth Horan with her expertise was also invaluable at getting this book into what it is now.
That's one of the common themes when I talk with authors from Animal Heart Press or Femme Salve, is what a great collaborative process and caring situation it is to be with Ellie and Amanda. And as you talk about Amanda, we have her on the line as well. I want to introduce her to the show here tonight. Hello, Amanda. How are you?
Hello. I'm well, thank you, Scott. How are you?
Doing great. Happy to talk to everyone. And
hello, Ankh, darling.
Hey, love. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Well, Amanda,
it's
what were your
always so lovely to
thoughts?
listen to you talk about the book. I'm going to go back a little further to when I first encountered Ankh in the magical world of Twitter. And I was going through some stuff, as you do when you're a human. And every time his tweets came up in my feed, there was just something magical and healing about them. And they always brought light to my soul. And I remember thinking, man, I would buy this book. If he had a book, I would buy it, because every interaction I had with him just left me feeling better. And that seemed to be such a common theme. Everybody I know has interacts with Ankh comes away and says, it's been a healing for me. And so I knew even back then that the world needed a book from him, because his words were doing so much good. And then I heard this little rumor that there might be a book, and I just thought, wherever it is, we got to find it, and we got to get it out there, because people need this book. And especially at the time, the world had gone to hell in a handbasket. And I said to Ellie, the world needs this book. We got to get it out there for people, because it is going to bring some light to this darkness. And Ellie said, I think he's got one. So I spoke to Ankh, and he said, oh my gosh, yeah, I have one, but it's an absolute disaster, and there's no way that anyone can fix it. And I said, if you can trust me, I can fix it. That's what I do. And he sent me this thing that he kept saying was a massive jumble. Stop crying, love. Massive jumble of stuff. And straight away I could see it. And so I printed it out, and I wrote all over my whiteboard. I moved things around, and I figured out where everything fitted. And I could see books straight away. I could see exactly how it was meant to be. And yeah, it was a big book, but it needed to be, because I think there was nothing really that I could think of that the world didn't need out of everything I was sent. So having done a little restructuring, I sent it back to Ankh and said, here, what do you think? And he said, oh my goodness, it's a book. Yeah, love, it's a book. It's a beautiful, amazing, magical book that is going to go out there and heal the world. And so he and Ellie spent some time doing a little bit of refining and some tweaking and adjustment, going a little bit deeper after I'd done the initial restructuring. And what we've ended up with is the incredible book that you see today. But I am beyond grateful, Ankh, that you trusted me. And I know it was a huge ask given everything that had gone on, but I'm so glad that you trusted me to help you bring that book back to the light, because it would have been an absolute travesty for that to have disappeared, because as you can tell from the number of people who've already bought the book, the world needed it, my love. Now they have it.
Well,
yeah, you're right.
With poets, a lot of times the writing obviously is very personal, and so the initial process of putting something together comes from an individual place. So what was the experience like for you sending it to Amanda and then putting it into her hands, having that trust, and then receiving it back and seeing what she's done with it? What was your initial response to that, and what sort of energy did it take on for you at that point?
There was something about the way that Amanda approached me that made me want to trust her, and she sort of exactly what she said happened, but she's downplayed just how much sort of work she did to reassure me that this was okay, and that what I was seeing from the inside wasn't what she was seeing from the outside, and that Femme Salve and the family that they are was safe in ways that all my previous experiences hadn't been. So I guess, she packed probably 30 years of therapy into a couple of conversations. And
I'm glad to know that all of my therapy came in handy.
Exactly, yeah. And soothed the goat. And it was astounding getting that manuscript back to see what she'd done and the connections that she had made that I thought were things that only I would ever see. It was like telepathy and symbiosis, and having somebody that just got it. That
sort of plays into the theme that you're talking about that the book touches on, which is we're not all just these individual specks, but there's something deeper in the connotation playing beneath the scenes. It sounds like that energy came to fruition as this was coming together. So what was the next step in the process once things have been restructured a bit? The book has sort of been resurrected. Has that new life to it? Where did things go from there?
Then we did a bit of back and forth around that, and then Ellie got involved, and we did so many sessions. I've lost count of how many video sessions we did where we went through the poems in detail with her very caring eye and her fostering me along every step of the way. And one of the things about working with Femme Salve, with Amanda and Eli and Beth Gordon, who's sort of the other matriarch in Animal Heart, is that you can never ask for too much reassurance. It didn't matter how often I needed to know that things were okay. They were always there to say, yes, it is, and now we take the next step. And again, without that, I felt like I could have faltered anywhere along the way. So Ellie and I went through the poems pretty much one by one, and we talked about the way that they connected with each other and the way that the reader would take a journey through the book if they were to read bits consecutively, and where there were poems that Ellie made a wonderful comment where she said that I demand a lot of my reader, that I don't baby them, that I don't hold their hand in any way, that what they get is for them to take away or not. But that can mean that some of the poems are pretty intense to read. So thinking about providing, I expressed it as little islands where in this great sea that sometimes gets rough in your reading, you can rest for a while on a little island and take your breath before you set off and sail on to the next one. So structuring the whole book with that in mind, as well as the connections between the poems. And Ellie sort of
I had a
laughed
pretty
when I said,
distinct idea of where, like, which poem was the first poem in each section and which poem was the last poem in each section. I kind of felt like the landings were pretty obvious, and I don't think she changed any of those except one.
yeah, I think you're right. Those beginning and end points, sort of like the windows and doors that open into each section, stayed the same. And Ellie and I had to do a lot more work, which was my fault, when I said, by the way, I've got this other document of poems that I think some of them would probably fit better in this book than some of the older poems that are in it now. Could we just have a look? And she was very willing to do that, but she thought that maybe I meant a document of like 10 poems, a dozen poems, and there were, I think, 30 or 40 poems in that document. So that was a lot more work, a lot more video sessions to go through, and we did end up pulling quite a few of those in and working to try and keep that continuity of flow through the book. But it was just so intuitive and so lovely, and I don't think we disagreed at all through the process. It was all very iterative and, yeah, just really respectful and caring, and I'm very happy with what ended up in the book.
So are we.
In this indie publishing scene where there are a lot of books that are just sort of thrown out there haphazardly, it's always great to talk to people that have this deeper vision and are willing to put in the work of construction and really digging in to find how things connect. And you're even talking about what I like to call the palate cleansers that come in between the feasts in a book, those moments of calmness.
Breathing room.
Yeah. A space to breathe.
Breathing room.
Yeah. So it's excellent that you all worked so well together, and you're talking about the creative process with Ellie. So let's go ahead and bring her onto the line as well and get some of her thoughts on this collection. Ellie, are you there?
Right.
I am here with all my jingly bells on and my pink wig.
Hello.
And my unicorn spirit. Hello.
Yes.
I just was listening and just I just started crying.
Me too.
So
when Amanda got going.
Yeah, I called.
Sorry.
I just finished my Zoom. I was teaching pro writing and communications up until about 10 minutes ago. I said to my class, I have to go support my author now, loves. And here I am. But I called on, and there was you on talking about our Zooms together. And the epic amount of poems you said, okay, well, we'll just have a look at these and see if any of them work, right? Well, they all were, astounding. So then it's like, how do you make these hard decisions? And we would put next to each one, okay, definitely replace or, swap out or change locations or whatever. We had these little codes. And Ankh kept incredible notes in the document to keep track of it all, because we're talking about 150 pages. So I mean, there's got to be at least 100 poems in this thing.
Total book ended up being, I think, about 178 pages long.
Okay,
yeah. Someone asked me the other day.
What am I saying? 150 then?
Yeah, we weren't kidding when we said it's a big book.
No, big ass book. Yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead, Ankh. What did you say?
Someone asked me the other day how many poems are in the book, so I actually counted them. And
did you?
If you count the haiku altogether, then I think there were 95 or 96 poems in total.
Yeah. Massive.
Yeah.
Massive. But as we talked about in our Zoom the other night, it's what it needed to be, and it was what Ankh wanted. And so that's what we did. And we never, we never second guessed that. We just were like, this is his vision. This is what we're doing. Big book or not.
The funny part was,
let's do it.
When I first sent that manuscript to Amanda, I'd chapterized what I thought were sort of 3 or 4 books, and having those conversations with her where she said, no, with the sections that you've got, we can make this work as one beautiful big book. We don't need to do that if you'd rather do it this way. And I love that worked.
We make the rules.
I think there's something. Mm-hmm. I think there's something to be said for the poet that you are too, Ankh, that you can pull this off, because, if there was a debut collection from someone else, even myself, that was 100 poems, I don't think you get to do this unless you've put in the time and the work and the community building and the connections. Like, you don't just, not many publishers would be willing to do a 180-page book for a debut collection unless you're Ankh. I mean, it just seems like a privilege reserved for you, my dear, because, it's, again, insane to me that this is your first book, but for some reason it is. So, the time wasn't right before. And now that the time is right, it can only be this masterpiece. It can only be this grand. A little 30-page chapbook for you as your first wouldn't have made any sense, right? Like, everyone would be like, where's the rest? So
I think that was part of the issue too, was that so many people would be like, where's this poem? Where's that poem?
Right.
We will give you all the poems.
Right. People know your work, and they love it, and they live by it, and they need it. So it was like, it's kind of like giving your fans exactly what they wanted, honestly.
And you guys for taking that leap of faith with me, because, like you said, there aren't publishers out there who do this, and I'm aware of that. So you're unique in so many ways. And so right.
And we're really proud of that as a press. We're really proud that we can make those decisions and we can take those leaps of faith and we can be author-focused, because that's what we've always said we were about. Always.
Well, one of my favorite quotes from Amanda is, we make the rules. And whenever I get a little, shaky in my boots, we make the rules, Ellie. We make the rules,
Do you think we can do this? Do whatever we want. We make the rules.
Yeah. And she proves it time and time again. And we all know that messing with Amanda is not a good idea. So, hell yeah, we make the rules. I love it.
So with all of the
details
that went into the manuscript itself and making sure that it was shining in all of your eyes, I'm sure that just as much attention went to the cover. So can we talk a little bit
about the cover, darling?
How that manifested?
Yeah.
The cover, little miracle, and I like to say that the artist was telepathic, which I do believe is true. She sort of pulls me up on saying that, but Anna Spence, who did the cover, is somebody who I met on Twitter, who was, we'd basically connected, and she'd been sending me little sketches and little watercolours and things that she did sort of off the cuff, just because she knew I was going through a hard time, and she knew that I have a form of synesthesia where colours become very resonant and important to me. So I loved the way that she used greens and blues in particular. They sing to me. So she'd send me these little pieces via private message when I was having a crappy day, and when the time came to do the cover, I had a vision in my head of sort of the basic design, but I knew that what she would do with it would just blow my mind, and she certainly didn't let me down when I approached her and said, what do you think, do you think you could work with this? She was so positive and so overjoyed to do it, and the bonus was that she also already knew my poems. We'd connected over her father, who very sadly passed away not that long ago, and she said he was also a runner and a poet, and I wrote a poem that has a lot of bird imagery in it and sort of pilot imagery and coastal imagery, and she said that was a poem that was sort of the core of her dad, who was a pilot, and I took that poem to, there's a wind telephone around our coast here where you can basically speak into an empty handset to people who have walked on from this place, and I read that poem over the wind telephone for him. So we had a really special connection, and she wove things into the details of that cover that just, yeah, I can't believe that they're there. It's all my poems are in that cover somewhere. It's magic.
Fantastic.
She crushed it, man. She absolutely crushed it.
She really did. Yeah.
Nice to have that magical energy flowing through every aspect of a project, and when it all culminates and comes together, you can really feel the vibration coming through. And we're coming to the close of this first hour. Going to go to a short music break here, and then we'll come back, hear some poems from the collection if you'd like to share some pieces with us, and we'll talk some more about the creative aspect and how this all came together. So we will be back in just a few.
I was reading some errands and I got to thinking that I thought maybe I'd get less stressed if I was tested less like all of these debutantes, smiling for miles in pink dresses and high heels and white yachts. But I'm not, baby, I'm not. No, I'm not. That I'm not. I've been tearing around in my fucking nightgown, 24/7 Sylvia Plath, writing in blood on my walls 'cause the ink in my pen don't work in my notepad. Don't ask if I'm happy, you know that I'm not, but at best I can say I'm not sad. 'Cause hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. Hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. I had 15-year dances, church basement romances, yeah, I've got. Spilling my guts with the Bowery bums is the only love I've ever known. It's set for the stage, which I also call home when I'm not. Serving up God in a burnt coffee pot for the triad. Hello, it's the most famous woman you know on the iPad. Calling from beyond the grave, I just wanna say hi, Dad. I've been tearing up town in my fucking white gown like a goddamn sociopath. Shaking my ass is the only thing left. Got this black narcissist off my back. She couldn't care less, and I never cared more. So there's no more to say about that, except hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. Hope is a dangerous thing for a woman with my past. There's a new revolution, a loud evolution that I saw, born of confusion and quiet collusion, of which mostly I've known. A modern day woman with a weak constitution, 'cause I've got monsters still under my bed that I could never fight off. A gatekeeper carelessly dropping the keys on my nights off. I've been tearing around in my fucking nightgown, 24/7 Sylvia Plath, writing in blood on your walls, 'cause the ink in my pen don't look good in my pad. They write that I'm happy, they know that I'm not, but at best you can see I'm upset. But hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. Hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. Hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. But I have it, yeah, I have it, yeah, I have it, I have.
All right, welcome back to this year's final episode of Songs of Selah. Thank you for tuning in. We're talking with Ankh Spice about his new book, The Water Engine, from Femme Salve Books, an imprint of Animal Heart Press. And we have Elizabeth Horan and Amanda McLeod from Animal Heart Press, along with Ankh tonight. Great way to send things out here in 2021, and also wanted to invite on the show here to kick off the second hour another editor from Animal Heart Press, Beth Gordon. Beth, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
How are you?
Hi. So happy you came on. Yay. It's a true party now.
It is. It's been so great to listen. This book is one where I just sort of sat back and watched Amanda and Elizabeth do their magic and with Ankh's magical poems, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And I dropped off about 30 copies of it at the post office today, so it's going out into the world here in the U.S.
That's so exciting.
It's so
And
exciting.
when she
The first
says
one's landed in the UK.
Back, yay. Like, when she says she sat back, well, she has to ship out all the books, which is no small task for this one. And she proofed the entire thing with copy edit. So, it takes the whole coven to get the book. Don't let her fool you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Glad to have everyone here joining the show again tonight. And if anyone would like to call in and ask questions for Ankh or read a few poems of your own, you're welcome to do so at 646-668-8757. We'll be here for the rest of this hour. And I wanted to turn things over to Ankh here. Maybe now that you've enlightened us about the creative process and how this book came to life, maybe maybe share a few pieces from the collection.
Sure, I'd love to do that, Scott. Right, I think the first one I'll read is the titular poem of the book, the first one that's in there. And that one's called For What, This Water Engine. Run this day untracked, this stolen day, derailed, spilled oil for us who tender our machinery at a limp, until the chug of it smuts us. Should. How do we should, when the light lances tremolo beams crooning out from the riddled body of the earth? How can I should, when this gutter puddle stuns herself giddy gold with the sisterly pump of the sun? I do not wish to should. I will not give the cunning of my cogs to this unmagic, but run until unwound, supping drowse and honeyed apple. And if I must become some grinding thing again, take my rivet flanks for a fountain, pointless, but for urging the water to dance with the water.
See? The world needs them.
There's a lot of shoulds going on at the moment, I think. I have them too. Everybody does.
Your poetry it's like you cast a spell. You know, I think on the Zoom call, Ellie said it best, like there's this sort of stunned silence after you finish reading, and stunned in the best possible way, because you just pull us in, and then you stop reading, and we're still in the poem. You know, we're still in it.
Yeah, it's that feeling of like, okay, I think he's done, but I don't really want it to be done. I want to stay there, you know? I want to stay there and feel this deeply and keep that magical feeling. I'm so glad you read that one again. When you read it in the Zoom, it was such a perfect thing, and you've just replicated it. And I could hear you. I would hear you read that every day if I could. I just think there is magic, and there is just something profound that maybe has no name to your work, sweetheart. But it's, you know, you want to hold it.
I think.
You want to hold it like a hug. Yeah. So amazing.
So before you dive into another talk, you had talked a little bit about reading at Carrie Fleckinger's event at some point that helped get your career, as it were, moving in a forward direction. Are there any other events there in New Zealand or that you've read at, and what's the poetry and art scene in general like in your area?
I haven't, no. It's this strange phenomenon where I've been published all around the world, but I've only just, coming up next year, been published here. And maybe that's a reflection of, you know, I didn't come up through traditional poetry degree, or I did do an English degree at uni and applied to a program when I was really, really young that I didn't get into, and took that completely the wrong way because I was only 16. But I think a lot of the scene here is predicated on either having been a student coming up through those degrees and those ranks, or being part of like the Poetry Society in Aotearoa, and I'm neither. I kind of fall in this middle ground. So that's a whole new journey. That's a whole new thing that's coming for me, hopefully. With that first publication here coming up next year, and I'm really excited about that.
sure that those avenues will open up for you. And as they say, a prophet is never known in his own city, so you just have to bide your time in that regard. And all those doors will open up.
There you go. But, it's like you have your own MFA. You've created your own education and your own MFA and your own rules for what you do. And I almost wonder if you had gone into a program at 16, that it would have been a different outcome, and maybe it wouldn't have been this outcome. Maybe it would have, you know what I mean? I think
you're right, Eli. I think you are. I think
your destiny was to get your MFA on Twitter with the world and with the people that love you.
I also,
Twitter MFA.
I also think yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I value immensely having had that time to grow my own voice and do, the Femme Salve motto, really make my own rules, because I didn't know what they were. So in my poetry, I make them up as I go along, and it's all about my own voice and my own journey and all the uniqueness that feeds that, without any preconceived notions.
I'm thinking they would have molded you and tried to mold you in a way that maybe wasn't this voice, and this is the voice that has to be. So, I don't know.
It's funny, it's funny you should say that, because a friend of mine who's a writer of not huge renown here, but is known here, said something quite similar to me when I talked about this thing, not having got into that program, but getting a personalised letter from quite a big name New Zealand poet who was running it, telling me that I was too young and that I needed to go away and regroup and apply a few years later. But then I got very, very sick and ended up in hospital, and none of it happened. But that writer friend told me that he felt that there was a certain moulding that was going on at that time through those programs that led to a homogeneity of the Aotearoa literary voice at the time. And he was the first person that said to me, I'm actually glad that you didn't do that didn't happen to you, because it would have taken something away from your uniqueness maybe, and maybe you'd come through that and out the other side, I don't know, but I think you're up to something.
Especially at that young age. I mean, even if you had been 20 and done an MFA, I mean, it would have shaped you in a way that you might not have been completely in control of. So something about the life you've lived has made you the poet you are, and that's the only option here for you. I mean, that's the what makes your writing what it is your life.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah. We're going to hear some more of that unique voice in the poems from the Water Engine. But can you talk a little bit about your writing process? Any sort of rituals or routines or habit energies that go into your creative process?
Yeah, most of my poems are written while I'm moving. For me, it's a very physical process of brewing work, and I run a lot. I run the coast extensively here, and I write in my head and via kind of voice notes apps as I do that, because I think it keys me into a kind of physical flow state that brings the words forth and does it in a really kind of unique way. So I brew pretty much everything while I'm moving before I ever sit down to write a word. And when I do sit down to write a word, it comes almost fully formed, because it's been brewing for days or weeks or months or sometimes years.
Very cool. I can identify with that a lot. I walk to the park every day and get into that rhythm. And by the time you get to the park bench, something sort of churning out. And always keep my
Yeah.
voice recorder with me as well to sort of
Yeah.
capture anything that might slip the mind before the time I get back home. But
Yeah.
I think there's something
I love
to
how many runner poets there are.
Something about the energy of, like you were saying, the movement. There's such a cadence to everyone's voice and the rhythms of their style. And I think through exercise or walking or jogging, we can kind of tune in to our own inner mechanics, and they seem to flow out in that style.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah.
Well, let's hear some more of your work. That first one was awesome.
Thank you. Okay, this one's called Why Water Takes Us This Way. Come to, still in the dark. Check the red nets of pulse. You can count each bright float, tally the catch. What bobs, what thrashes on, raging at the temple, behind the eyes, in the cave of the ear. What a chant you are, knit through and through with the old swells of boat song, haul away, heave, and if all's well among the strands, the hull thumps on, and no wonder our throats leap fast to shanty, all that yo-ho following us to ground. I think we learned it skinned into the first kind sea, scream it out when it dawns we cease so suddenly to float. Seems we sing it one part missing every voyage after. None of this is blue love, not really. The clear harmony of tides, calling in every tone in the range, whistled light-breaking wave to abyss. There are tricks so profound we reel at their grace. Let us stop seeing red.
Let us stop seeing red. Beautiful. Another excellent piece.
Thank you, Scott.
Please continue.
You know which one you have to read, you know.
Which one do I have to read?
Everyone's going to want to hear it. You're going to have to read New Cross, darling. Everyone's going to want to hear it.
This poem I wrote for my wife, and I put it up yesterday on Twitter because it was the anniversary of a life-changing surgery for her. It's been 11 years almost to the day since we were living inside this poem, so this is New Cloth. Your pattern pinned itself to the fray of me the first day. Not yet stitched, aligning fragile tissue, judging bias. The wounded cut carefully, always holding their breath. When they remade you, I slept on a hospital couch with your dress bundled like a woolen heart to my nose. 5 hours inhaling, exhaling bargains, a short time to outfit a whole woman into her own dear self. We tied knots with every colour we could find. Understand, love always gets down to the wisp, beyond fabric, to stroke the finest thread of a person. Our making looms us legacies of holes. You fear cutting yourself short, me born running with scissors, and all of us rippling fast toward the great unravelling. Yet great thumping treadle of the heart can still say, now you're mending, billow with the wind.
Ankh, darling. Just giving you the biggest hug. Yeah, that it's so painful and so full of love, and I just I want to hold you and hold Kate, and I want you to know how much I love you.
Thank you. The response to that poem is always overwhelming every time I put it out there, and it was the thing I least expected, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those that, anyone else who has been affected by pain, in the trans community might not feel able to share, and then you share it, and it's like it gives love and normalcy and healing and kindness to so many people who need that and, might not have the words or the safety.
Yeah, the feedback that I've got on it is is exactly that. But I think I said on when that won its place in the Poetry Archive, I think I said in the bio there that I wanted it to be what it was not just a love poem for Kate. It was a love poem to the trans community to make people who perhaps had given up on love realise that they didn't need to. That they felt unworthy and they didn't need to.
That they may still find love, and that they may still find a way to love themselves when society is not being kind, and I just think you do that so much for that community and for the whole world, but for that community, and bless you for that, Angel. It takes strength, and but it is also one of the most beautiful love poems I've ever known. So it's it's the private world, and then it's also this support for that greater community. I mean, that's why it goes so deep. I love you, honey. I love you. You're doing so great. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're doing so great.
I've never done this before, so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're
doing
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Coming through right on point, and we've talked a lot about your work, obviously, here today. That's the main focus, this new collection. But do you want to talk a little bit about your responsibilities as an editor with Ice Flow Press and the work you do with Barron Magazine?
Sure. I'll just have to take a minute to collect myself after reading that poem.
That's all right, darling. Yeah. That's a really tough one, and beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm sending you a big radio blog hug.
Thank you.
Let's do it. Let's do a group hug. Everybody hug themselves. We're sharing that with each other. We got you, baby. We got you. You have your coven here holding you up. You do.
Yep, we're all here.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you are.
I'm wondering can we share Amanda's wolf spirit? Can we share our animal spirits? I feel like I want to, Ankh's our sea goat, and then Beth, what's yours?
I'm a crow witch.
Yeah, crow witch. And then Amanda, can you please say the name of your spirit wolf?
My spirit wolf name is Kanoosh.
Yeah. I love it.
And what's yours,
Oh,
Ellie?
my God. I'm Rainbow Unicorn.
Okay.
Of course you are.
Well, I didn't. Ankh gave me that. I didn't make that up.
Yeah,
but
it suits you. It suits you well.
But when he gave it to me, I was like, yes, I am. I'm right, I am. And I'm going to do some, split leaps in a tutu with my pink wig and all my unicorn beauty. But no, I love that. I love that idea, and like, you know, the way that we've bonded in this book, the way that we've like held each other and bonded and talked about our animal spirits, and you know, we just like hold each other, especially when things feel ouchy. It's a really a huge gift when you have people around you that will hold you when things hurt so bad. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. You know? I love it. And Kanoosh will kick anyone's ass that tries to mess with us.
You're so funny.
Scott, can I just say how much I appreciated that essay that you read just before the show, that goats and magic popped up in it. That was really, really cool.
That was quite a synchronicity this morning, because
it really
that's a piece from Evermore, and Annette Nacer, the editor at ILA Magazine, had asked me to send her something here the past couple of days, and I sent her that essay and thought, well, I'm going to read this here on the final show of the year, a piece I really like, and then it all came together. I was telling my friend Mihaila Melnick, my co-author on the book, that this guy's going to think that I wrote this about him. You got the goat coming on, talking about goat. I ran with it anyway.
No.
It all kind of worked out.
I got that it predated that, but it was that synchronicity thing again, and it was really neat.
Yeah.
I actually love that you're taking some time out, Scott, to explore the quiet. I actually, a few weeks ago, took my entire family up into the mountains when they finally let us out of lockdown. And we had no screens and no phones and no technology and 151 acres of wild bush to play in. And I highly recommend it, and I wish I'd done it sooner, and I've already made plans to do it again. It is the most incredible thing for your clarity of thought and your self-discovery. Definitely do it.
Yeah.
Do it if you can.
Absolutely amazing. I just on a micro level, I try to get to the park once a day at least, and just disconnect from, you know, the Wi-Fi and the iPad and all of these things that we're bombarded with constantly, and take my mind away from the news of the world just for those brief moments. Hopefully, as Ankh was saying, a poem will pop up while on the way, but it's just so important in these times.
I'm a daily outsider too. You've got to go out every day.
It's imperative to find time in nature, in this world especially. So yeah, this holiday season we'll be delving into that more. Really, lately I've been on a wild schedule here the past 4 or 5 months, going to bed early and then waking up between 2 and 3 a.m., getting out for walks under the moon and the stars, and seeing that eclipsed full moon a few nights ago was quite a poignant experience. I watched it completely get shrouded, and then as it was coming back off and waning again, it was like this huge yin-yang symbol in the sky, half light, half...
Yeah, we saw that too down here.
So beautiful.
Fantastic. I'm an early to bedder, and I've found myself lately trying to follow the natural rhythms a little bit more. Particularly when we were away, we only had one clock, and it was sort of in the main part of the house that we were in, and we just went to sleep when we were tired and woke up when the sun woke us. And there's something incredibly satisfying about just rolling into that rhythm and leaning into it.
Yeah, that's my favourite thing. I'm, getting in tune with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's hard. Like, society doesn't want us to do that, does it? It's hard.
Never,
It's hard to
never
fight
think
for that.
about. It's really amazing how the energy flows differently once that circadian rhythm is more aligned with the natural rhythms of the earth.
Yep. Definitely.
Will anyone else want to share a poem here tonight? A little bit of round robin, perhaps?
I don't have any
I'll
goat
read
poems.
one.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I think
I've got
I don't have a goat poem
coming out soon, funnily enough.
I'm always good with round robin. Amanda, I can't believe you don't have anything.
I don't have any goat poems. I'm just having a quick rummage through.
No, but
all of my files.
you could do one of your nature poems from your. You could
That's
do
what
the
I'm
Man from
thinking.
Snowy River. Do that one.
I could do the Man from Snowy River. Ankh, you'll get this. You'll understand.
He would. Do that.
I get the
Yeah.
title immediately.
Mhm.
That's
It's
not
a brilliant
that's not the
prose
full
poem
title.
that
I just got to find it. Where
yeah,
did I
no,
put
it. No. That's
someone else
hers.
go first while I.
Yeah, I can read mine while you're looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
I started writing a series of abodes titled Between Now and Never. And when I was writing them, I wasn't, an abode is usually specific to a person, a lover, a journey in the morning. And I started writing these, and I had no idea who I was writing them about. And then tonight, as we were all talking about this circle, I thought, oh, these are to everyone I love, living and dead. It's so the you is a collective you in these. So I'll read this one, Between Now and Never. Then one morning, the morning grass was wet with frogs. Each small blade a glistening, each small root a river flush with minnows. The morning sparrow grew unyoung and silent. My love, the silence of a sparrow is the silence of the dead. Violin strings vanished in a cloud of seeds, each seed a feast, a million impossible wombs. A million times my name in your mouth, a million mornings the grass was slick with snails, sticky with webs, the 8-legged wolves burrowing at the first pluck of morning light. We will cross the bridge of wisteria, the bridge as tangled as your veins, each vein a kite string rippling like wheat. Each string a chorus of petals on a hummingbird's tongue, a million tongues as brutal as stone, a million stones clamor to rise, my love, each stone a spectacular never.
Awesome. Always is.
Wow.
So that's my love poem to all of you.
Oh, yay. Beth's language is just incredible. I love the way she writes.
Do my birthday present.
It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
That was amazing, Beth. Love your writing so much. So wonderful.
Thank you.
So good.
Yeah.
Yay.
Your poem that you read on the Zoom, blew us all away out of the water, Yeah. I don't know if you're up for reading it tonight, but I sure did love it.
Thank you.
I found the Man from Snowy River. Yay. While I was away on my mountain break, I actually was fortunate enough to go again to the headwaters of the Snowy River, which were unfortunately, even though it was November, covered by snow. So unusual in Australia at that time of year. But this is a prose poem, and it is called "The Man from Snowy River Was Just a Man." Far up in the snowy mountains, where time moves like glaciers, is the birthplace of rivers. In an ecosystem like no other on Earth, delicate beds of sphagnum moss send tendrils through millennia, a living, breathing filter. Tiny black gold frogs birth eggs into plant-cleansed bogs under the watchful eye of snow gums, begets life as it did long before Europeans arrived to count the years, before an ordinary stockman glorified in a poem dragged introduced species into legend. The imbalance here is a problem of our own making. We have no one else to blame for unsavory solutions. Each hoof, cloven or not, is an interloper, a tamping down in a place not evolved to withstand that pressure. Each mouthful of moss gone, each pugging foot stomp, replaces crystalline waters with wide, shallow, mud-brown flats. The gurgling babble becomes a glug. One by one, fragile species vanish. What lives on is a colonial fiction, romanticized in the developing identity of a nation that already had one it chose to ignore. 130 years is less than a heartbeat here, but poisoned water lasts millennia, would outlast us all.
Wow, I love it.
Wow. It's a hell of an eco poem, Amanda.
Isn't it?
Thanks.
So, Amanda, when you're out in the wilds of Australia, what type of animal encounters are you having?
Pretty much all of them. I walk, where I walk is quite close to my house, and I frequently have to shoo kangaroos off the path. Echidnas are quite common. Yeah, you've all seen photos. Echidnas are quite common around here, and I saw my first wild wombat very recently as well, which was exciting. They're so cool. They're like little tanks, and they run really quickly. And loads of different bird life as well around here. And magpie season is over now, which is good. For about 6 weeks a year, the magpies just go absolutely mental here and try and peck your eyes out if you get too close to their nest. Bombard you from behind. It's like 6 weeks of walking out of the house and being constantly vigilant wherever you go. That's over now.
Go for the eyes.
Then they hit you from behind. They won't come at you if you're looking, but they'll hit you in the back of the head.
Yikes.
Yay, Australia, where everything will try and
we have
kill
a few of your imports here. Yeah.
Oh, you can keep them. We don't want them back.
We don't want them.
Just until the end of that brief 6-week period, you can keep them. After that, it's fine. You can return them. Just keep them while they're mental.
Is there really an Australia and New Zealand rivalry, by the way? Like, is that real? Or were you guys...
We can't talk about that.
Yeah.
Can I want to be in on this. I want to know.
It's good-natured. It
depends
sort of
on who you are.
Kind of like, is it like we're better, we're cooler, or I mean, we have a better prime minister?
You guys in Canada?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When you call a Canadian an American, that's what Kiwis feel when you call us Australian.
So the Australians are like the Americans, and the New Zealanders are the Canadians? Is that it?
Yes.
I think
yes.
Amanda
I think that's what he's claiming.
Funny.
But then whenever I go overseas, everyone thinks I'm from South Africa.
Oh, there you go.
I understand it. Hey, it's all very weird.
Well, I'm glad you two have been able to coexist in such a kind and amazing way.
We don't buy into the hype, do we, Ankh?
We don't.
No,
we don't.
It's about the politics here.
I don't really care about.
if you're a Democrat in the United States, you think that Canada's better anyway. So, like, you know.
There is a lot to be said for universal health care, just saying.
You secretly want to move there every time a Republican is in office, so.
Yep.
Someday.
We won't go there either.
No,
Ellie,
we don't
you
tend
have I think your turn is...
I do, and I'm going to read something a little different. It's a love poem. I wrote it for Bola Opolik, who is a Nigerian-Canadian poet of incredible talent. He and I wrote this book together some years ago, and we think it might be close to having a publisher. So this is called First Time Queen. I know, right? Whew. Do you remember the time you drank from my throat? It had 2 holes. Painted vermilion and neon fistulas, lemon drop walnuts plugged an entire nation. Lay words upon canvases, thick velvet rope. Viscous is what viscous does, work of EMTs and better halves. It was the worst day till you came and toured my thighs, not yet sexual, nothing to gain. Just 4 hours of island skin, dappled by coconut hair, storm gutter veins. Not like my youth, when comparisons were Britney this, Britney that. Mudslides, bulimia, and cocaine. Now I'm Catherine in Africa. I look without fear down the smooth metal barrel. It's a lion charging at me, and Hemingway be damned, I won't even shoot it.
Excellent. Congratulations on the book. Hope that finds a home.
I know. I do too.
They always do.
Thank
usually at the right time.
That's steamy.
At the right time, yeah.
That's not even the steamiest one. I mean, Bola and I just, we're just friends, but like we were able to kind of go into this, imagined fantasy world where we wrote this kind of like love chap to each other, but it also is like about, gender and race and being separated by oceans and pain and God and all these societal rules. So it was very cool. Very cool.
Ankh, do you have
brilliant post.
Another piece that you'd like to share tonight, maybe to help close things out here toward the end?
Sure. Let me do that. On the heels of our bird conversation, I think I'll read a poem called Commute with the Birds that was published in Feral Journal, which is nice because Feral Journal is also... You did, yeah. Morning is a step into a cage. These crowds are made of birds who should have flown. We flock aboard a northbound train to move these bodies made to move themselves. Deny each day the hollow light inside our bones. We fell into this, all species here. Pin-pinioned town crows and black drip raincoats, crooked encroachments of elbows, heroned angles in the ribs. Umbrella beaks jab a knee out of line. The window clatters pigeons, grey-wing roof tiles rising from houses. They seem escaped, but they roost as tight as teeth. Then overhead wires cheese-cut their flight to death. Even the crowded air of the city is a maze. Even hedges snarl at each other over borders, all leaf memory of crown shyness lost. Where are their nesting forests, for their trunks still neighboured snug, yet blue rivers of sky mapped around their outstretched hands, where one thing sheltering respects the canopy of another? And from a different train, A lost morning snipped a glimpse of starlings on the pier in their thousands, still spacing themselves in Mobius of flight, and not one was drowned by the draft of their launch. I've missed my stop, remembering how a single gannet will unpress from the colony 4 miles to fish alone. Thrown dart of a body, spiraled tight with purpose, beak first to the water. O singular, O greedy, O fed by falling, over and over from one world to another.
Beautiful poem, beautiful collection it sounds like from everything you've shared here tonight, and I want to congratulate you on getting this collection out into the world, and it sounds like it's doing just that with Beth shipping out the copies today, so hopefully those will reach eager hands soon and your words will be spreading. And just congratulations on the journey so far and how this all came together, and I want to thank you for coming on the show here tonight, and I want to thank Ellie and Amanda and Beth for all the shows that you've done here in 2021 and before then, and all the great guests been here on Songs of Selah. It's been an awesome time. Always enjoy getting to talk to everyone, and just hope that you all enjoy a happy holiday season ahead and a beautiful new year right around the bend.
You too, Scott. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Scott.
You.
Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you all for all that you do as well. Keep putting the words out there, and we will meet again. All right, my friends, until we do meet again on down the line someday, somehow, I will sign off for now by simply saying Selah.
Good night, Scott. Thank you.